everyone, and welcome to the Psych Legal Pop Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about popular culture through the lens of an attorney and a therapist. My name is Brooke Brigham. I'm the attorney.
And I'm Tess Brigham. I'm the therapist.
And today we have a very special guest. We recorded, this is episode 117. We recorded a episode about the documentary, The State of Alabama versus Brittany Smith. And just to refresh your recollection, this is about a woman who, in Alabama, who was convicted. Well, she actually pled guilty, but she was charged with murder. She tried to use the stand your ground rule in Alabama. Alabama and some other states have the stand your ground rule where if somebody is in your own home, you have no duty to retreat before using deadly force. And she killed a man with a gun who she had let into her home initially voluntarily, but he wouldn't leave. He ended up raping her, and she shot him and was not allowed to use the stand your ground defense in her case. And she ended up taking a plea deal and ended up only serving about 3 years. But the prosecution was really very adamant about getting a conviction out of her. Mm-hmm. They wanted her to be a felon for life. And that set her on a path to setting her up to violate her probation because she had so many constraints and so many things working against her. But anyway, we will talk more about the Brittany Smith case as we go along because there's a lot to it. That's just a snapshot. But we were contacted by our guest today, whose name is Carolyn, and she reached out after finding the podcast, and she told us that she had a connection to this case in that she served some time in the same correctional facility as Brittany Smith in Alabama, and she resonated with a lot of what we talked about, the themes from Brittany's case, where women are treated very poorly in the justice system in Alabama, and especially in these correctional institutions, and they do not get the same rights that men do. Mm-hmm. And talking about the conditions, and she has firsthand knowledge of that. So we really wanted to reach out to her and to thank her for contacting us mm-hmm. and listening to the podcast and reaching out and hearing what she has to say about this, because she's lived it. And welcome, Carolyn. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, yes.
We really appreciate it. So I guess you can just maybe start by telling us your story and how you crossed paths with, and you can explain to what extent you crossed paths with Brittany Smith. But tell us your story.
Well, like every other Southern girl, your dream is to get married, have children, have a family, and many other women, but it's very prominent in the Southern culture. Got married at 20, very young, and not knowing at the time, but I was actually involved in a narcissistic abusive situation and stayed in that abusive marriage for 22 years. And if you know anything about narcissistic abuse, it does not end at the divorce. It's like you're still married, but you just live in separate homes. The abuse went on a total of 30 years until I finally went no contact. And the abuse doesn't end just with yourself. It bleeds over into your children. As of today, I have no contact with 2 of my 3 adult children because of lies and manipulation. And all that to say, I was a shell of a person when I got divorced, an absolute shell. There was nothing left of me. I was merely existing. And I had choices, yes, but I did choose alcohol as my self-medication, unfortunately. So I say that to give the background of the abuse never stops. And so I didn't know how to get out of that. And the alcohol just increased as my children pulled away, as the attacks continued to come through my life. And one night I did have a DUI, my first and only. And in that DUI, I did run a red light, which resulted in a wreck with a Shelby County officer. Not proud of it, don't condone it, and own my responsibility in that. But that led to 3 years later being convicted of a felony and sent to prison for a year. No one was killed, thank God. But to say all that, it put me in a position as an educated woman. I was a school teacher. I have been my whole life. Taught in inner city schools. Was an advocate for people that didn't have a voice. And now I find myself in a prison with people that have no voice. And so I was there a year. I got out in December. And I have to honestly say it was one of the most wonderful experiences in my life, not to say the prison part, but what I learned from it, what I got out of it, and how it changed my life. It actually gave me a time to sit down and truly heal from the trauma that had caused this whole debacle. I'm 2 years sober. I came out better than I did going in. And I think that's a choice you have to make when you go into prison. Am I going to let this completely destroy me? Am I going to lay down in this metal bed on this tiny little mattress and be angry and just full of rage and hate and depression? Or am I going to pick myself up, make something better of this, and change the trajectory of my life? And I chose that I was not going to come out the same or worse than when I came in, because this understanding the trauma that put me there, I just could not take that back out with me. I wanted to be done with that. So that is my story. But I did know Brittany in there. And like I've mentioned before, when you are in prison, you do not talk about what you did. I probably was one of very few that could tell you exactly what I did and tell you the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Typically in prison, you either don't tell the whole truth or you just don't. You don't talk about it. You don't ask about it. You just understand we all made a mistake. We all did a felony of some sort in the eyes of the law that put us in this same situation.
Yeah. Explain to us the sentencing, because I thought this is part of your story and part of the documentary story is just the harshness of the sentences that are basically forced on you, because there's no way you would risk going to trial.
No,
it's crazy.
In my situation, had I gone to trial, I would have probably spent a minimum of 2 to 3 years. And I say probably 3 than the 2. The sheriff himself of the county had a personal vendetta in this situation. I'm not sure what it is. It is a missing piece to me. But he was going to personally come to my trial. The sheriff of this county, to make sure that I spent that amount of time. And so when the plea deal of 10 split 1, which means I really was served with 10 years to serve 1. And at any time after that, if I were to get in trouble again, I guess under the same guidelines, I would go and finish. If I broke that, I would finish the rest of the 9 years.
Wow. So you was it a 2-year probation?
Yeah. So I served 1 and then I'm on probation for 2.
Okay. So if at any time during those 2 years you do anything, even like a misdemeanor, or you violate the terms of your probation, it could be something minor like a curfew or anything like that, you automatically go back and serve the 9 remaining years, no questions asked.
Correct.
Wow.
And I was threatened prior to, I had about 3 months where I had asked to go to rehab prior to my year sentence starting. And they put me on house arrest and ankle monitor. And none of that time counted towards my year service.
Oh.
So I did that for 3 months just so that I could go to rehab. And I could only leave my house to go to rehab and come back, obviously not able to drive. And so I had no one to take me, and I hired an Uber every day for 3 months, Monday through Friday, to take me and to bring me home. And there were several mornings, and well, I'll back up. I was told prior to leaving the courtroom that day that if I made one mistake, I would go straight to prison for 20 years, no questions asked.
Wow.
And they sent sheriff deputies to my house multiple times during that 3 months to make sure I was not getting in a car and driving by myself.
So was this were you in custody from the time you were arrested until they let you out with that ankle monitor?
No, I was on bond. I bonded.
Okay.
And I was going back to court every 2 months for 3 years, because this happened 4 years ago, this March. And they just, I feel like, almost set you up for failure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Make it so difficult for women like Brittany, especially. I'm blessed that I have a car, I have a place to live, I have means to be able to pay my probation every month. But I don't know what people do, and they do end up not being able to follow the rules, and they end up back in there for years because they couldn't pay $40 or because they couldn't show up.
Yeah. Well, as of today, I was just trying to figure out, because I know you got out in December and Brittany was still there, correct? Because she only did 3 years at first after she was sentenced. But since then she's violated parole 6 times and is still in and out to this day. And these violations are stupid.
Yeah.
They're for stupid things. And so basically, even though she only served that 3 years, she's been back in most of the time ever since.
Right.
She's caught up in the system.
Absolutely.
Like you said, she can't get a job. She doesn't have reliable. And I'm interested to know, like, what happened with your job and your situation, and how were you able to, have the means to be able to keep this all going?
First, I have great family support from my parents. Second of all, I had been a school teacher. I was a school teacher I've had my license over 30 years. I taught the last 7 in an inner city school, and I have been teacher of the year twice. So I was very productive citizen. This situation of my drinking never affected my teaching career, my professional life. It was a thing of loneliness, and it hurt and ache at night. Mm-hmm. But I have not lost my license per se. I still do not know. That is still up to the Board of Education in Montgomery for Alabama. They have not suspended or revoked, but they will not tell me what they do. And I've been waiting now since they found out, and they have 3 years to decide. And now that my sentence has been fulfilled, I still don't know.
Wow.
About my license. And I will tell you, when you're in prison and you go to leave, they hand you this paper of 4 pages stapled together of all these companies that are second chance employers, and they're going to hire you. Not one has hired me. I've had interviews, and this has been since December 30th. I have applied for 10 or more jobs a day. Mm-hmm. And Indeed, and making connections. I've interviewed at least 3 or 4 times a week. Walmart will not hire me. Target. The only other thing I have on my record is a speeding ticket at 16 and 17 years old. Mm-hmm. But they charged me, and this is where they get you. I was charged with an assault 1 felon, which on paper looks like I attacked somebody, physically attacked them. And I know people on the inside that had the exact same charge when they might have beat their significant other or their a lady had beat her cousin with a crowbar
Mm-hmm.
to death with the exact same sentence.
Well, yeah, the fact that you hit a police officer
Mm-hmm.
just set it off on a whole other trajectory.
Correct.
Yeah. Did you ever watch the show Orange is the New Black? Are you
It's
familiar
funny.
with that show? I'm sure people ask you that.
They do. I never could watch it beforehand. I was kind of, I don't know, very sheltered, very prim and proper.
Yeah. Well, so at the end of the series, this is what reminded me of this. At the very, I think the last season of the series, the main character, Piper, gets out of prison and they show what life is like for her first year out. And it very similar. She was a person, educated, had a job, blah, blah, blah. She made this choice and she took responsibility and she did her time and now she's coming out. And it was the exact same thing. Like she couldn't, she didn't have a car. She was living with her brother. She couldn't, one of the things that the only job she could get was at this restaurant, but she could only work during the day because of alcohol, because they served alcohol at night. So she could only work day shifts, but she couldn't make enough money from the day shifts to be able to do that. And, the money that she had to pay, the probation, I think that's another thing that most people don't realize is that it's all these fees. And so people hear probation violation. And I think people automatically go to this place of like, oh, they screwed up again. But It's like not being able to come up with $40 is not you screwing up.
No.
Or whatever the fee is. You not having a ride to get somewhere so that you're late to something and you lose your job is not you screwing up. It's not you making a mistake. That is, and in so many ways in our world, we are so kind to people about like acts of God, like things that happen, except when it comes to this, it's like there's zero tolerance.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes against everything that we understand about humans, because humans make mistakes. Humans, that is just part of the process. And you make bad choices and you make mistakes and you do things wrong. And so it's almost like, well, stop being human, be a robot. And then, oh no, then that's it. You're back. And I think I think Brittany's a good example of someone who, because she struggled with addiction, she was getting her life together. Then this thing happened. And I don't know exactly what all these probation violations, but my guess would be it's all stemming from just trying to get things rolling for herself, just trying to get somewhere, but they make it so hard.
You come out, it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard when you come out mentally.
Mm-hmm.
You have been in a place where every sense in your body has been at level 1,000, 24/7 a day.
Wow.
The smells, the sounds, the alertness, there is no quiet ever. There is no complete darkness at night. Lights are on always. There is rules upon rules upon rules inside among the inmates and just the general rules. So you are on high alert 24/7. And, I was only in there for a year. I can't imagine people that have been in there 5, 10, 15, 20 and get out. But sleep is still hard for me in those quiet places in the dark. My mind goes back to there this day. And I haven't been out that long. But in Brittany's case, she was fighting for her children.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So many women are fighting for their children. And let's look at the whole picture. Was there a man involved? Was there trauma involved? Was there a situation involved that caused this situation to help make her make the choices she made that day to let her brother take the rap? Because she was days from getting her children back. And like you said, she was trying so hard. But nobody looks at the bigger picture. And I can tell you there's not one woman in that prison that is not there because of some trauma in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And until we heal the trauma, till we fix that, the mistakes are going to continue.
Yeah. And when I
made just because you want to make a mistake or you're an evil, horrible person, you're making them out of survival.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because when I first talked to you, you said that so many of the women that you met, they were there because of self-defense, defending themselves against their abusers. And some of them killed their abusers because it was kill or be killed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of moms that had killed men that had abused their children.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the justice in that? That she spends her life in prison with no parole.
Yeah.
And she said she'd do it again in a heartbeat. But yet she's the one that was taken away from her child.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to talk about these children of mothers in there. And I can only speak on behalf of the women, but I think as women, we're not looked at like that. I mean, yes, people have done some horrible things, but we need to look at the woman's role. A lot of these women are the breadwinners of their houses. A lot of these women are the sole caregivers of ever how many children they have, and others in their family's children, and on and on and on. And we're destroying, and I know their choices did, but we're destroying many, many lives and generations through these I forgot the word, but the sentences that these women are given.
It's generational trauma.
Yes, but there's no hope for them, and there's no understanding of the bigger picture. That's what frustrates me.
Because I think when you were telling your story, right, this is a great example of I got married at 20. And so it's very easy for someone at 50 to go, well, why did she pick this guy? You're like, well, her frontal lobes weren't developed. You're 20 years old. Everyone stop and think about who you were dating at 20, or some of the crapola you put up with. It's like, no. And that's one piece. And I think with your story and also Brittany's story, I was just re-listening to our episode earlier. That was one of the pieces that just drove me crazy, is just how not one person stopped for 1 second and said, well, let me put myself in this person's shoes. Let me, for one moment, think about being 20 years old or being young or doing this. And then this happened and this happened and that happened. Because Brittany got in trouble for denying that she was raped on the 911 call. And okay, I'm sorry, but we listen to a lot of 911 calls. Lots of people give a lot of information all over the place. It's just, it's astounding to me that there aren't more people along the line that aren't stopping. So right. I'm curious about, for you, like, as you were weaving through, did you feel like you had anyone besides your attorney? Did it feel like anyone in the system was at all helpful or trying to make this an easier process for you?
I'm not going to say anybody made it easier for me, but along the way, like the lady that was in charge of, like, my parole officer, I guess you would say, but over the ankle monitor that I had to do. And when you have that, which a lot of women come out of prison on that, that's $300 a month.
Wow.
And you pay that?
I had to pay that for 3 plus the Uber. It's a very expensive. It's a money-making business. And the lady that was over that for me just could not believe. Anybody I told my situation on the inside could not believe that that's what was happening to me. Not one officer, anyone that I spoke to. And she even tried to get me hooked up with a different lawyer to try to help, before I had gotten sentenced. And so it just, they did not believe that the sentence was, they didn't feel like it fit the crime.
Yeah.
There should not have been any accountability or sentence. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying I didn't do wrong. But there are circumstances, and it's almost like a ruining of the life. And I think you said it earlier, making her Brittany pay with having a felony for the rest of her life. I was only blessed. I don't know where I would be living right now had the landlord I had prior to going in said, I'm going to hold this townhouse for you.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And said, but they will be leaving when you will move back to this.
Wow.
And I'm here today without a job, but where would I have been able to go if I don't have a job still? No income coming in, felony.
Mm-hmm.
Who else is going to rent to me? So I'm
That's an
very,
angel. Yeah.
Yeah.
but I don't know what people do. I really don't. And I'm not surprised that they reoffend. And
What choice do you have?
to put somebody in prison for probation violation is absurd to me. Absurd. There's got to be a better way.
Yeah. Well, it also seems a little bit, and obviously there has to be a cutoff, but let's rethink the violations. I mean, again, someone who's showing up late once is a little different than someone who's showing up late every time. Or, I mean, that's a different issue. You wouldn't, there are people that show up late to work every day that don't get fired from their jobs. I mean, and I think one of the things for women, especially, is it feels like it's a double-edged sword a bit of, right? Like we are so held to this very high standard as mothers. Like fathers can kind of be semi in, semi out and be great dads. But women, my God, we are, something goes wrong with your kid, it is all on you. And then here you see all of these women who my guess would be end up in prison, like you said, for killing the abuser, but for stealing for their kids' food, for being a sex worker, for whatever it is. And then we're so that same mother is still you're a terrible mother. Like I think that my guess would be there's probably a lot of women there that were doing anything they could, whether it was legal or not, to keep themselves and their children alive and fed and okay.
Right.
And so, but you're not doing it the way we want you to do it. I don't know.
Well, I'm very clear. A lot of times when I talk to people, there are true criminals with criminal minds that do deserve to be there. I met them. I saw them. That's not a debatable thing. That is what our prison and our justice system is for. But there is a large amount of women and men, I'm sure, but a large amount of women that are sitting in prison that we could be doing something completely different with to make this a better life and situation for their children and for them, that could have just as a much better outcome. But, that are not these horrible, heinous crimes. Drugs alone, and I'm not condemning drugs. I'm not saying that's okay. They're worse in prison than they're on the outside.
Yeah. I'm a big believer that no one should be convicted for drug use. I mean, at all. It is a mental health issue. It's
addiction.
It's addiction.
Right.
We all have addictions. There are acceptable addictions and there's not acceptable addictions, but it is an addiction. Again, not excusing the behavior, but it's just more of no one should be this. Nobody should ever serve any time for a drug addiction.
Lady, and this one I just cannot get over. Met a lady, she's now been in there 2 years and has another year to go. She had a 3-year sentence. She's from California, lived in California her entire life, card carrying marijuana user, because that's the state that she was on a cross country road trip with her dog, was passing through Alabama, heading to Florida. They're notorious for stopping people with California and Colorado tags. Stopped her, claimed that she had enough, sent her to prison for 3 years.
Unbelievable.
It's like they're just playing games with people. Yeah, targeting people from these states they know where marijuana is legal. I mean, it's just sadistic.
Yes.
It's sadistic what these... what is going on. And listen, so what... Did you get any kind of help in that facility? What was the prison facility you ultimately were transferred to?
I was first at Shelby County Jail and then was transferred to Tutwiler, which is a women's prison in Alabama.
Okay. And did you ever get any services? Like, did they have AA classes or NA classes or any sort of anything?
There are no AA, NA, CA classes. They offer a Celebrate Recovery, which is a Christian-based AA. through the prison fellowship to 14 women, and there's there's 2 sections a year. There are hundreds of women in that place.
Why only 14? You can fill a whole hall of people. Why do you have to keep it at 14?
14 in a class of all classes.
All classes.
That is the only addiction help that they have. So there is no rehabilitation in the addiction. They could have group therapies. They could have all kinds of things. There is no help in that area whatsoever.
Wow. Psych Legal Pop will be back after these messages.
Wow. And yeah, you also talked about how there's no preparation for getting out.
No.
When you're paroled or you get out on probation, there's no way to, you're just like sent out there, no preparation. You kind of don't even really know when it's going to be happening or what's going to happen or where you're going to go. It's just.
For some people, yes.
Yeah.
Some people know. For me, I knew I had an EOS, which is end of sentence. So I knew on December 29th, that was my day and I was leaving. And funny enough, I got up to leave that day and they didn't have record of it. There was a mistake in the computer.
Oh,
and
nightmare.
The officer looked at me and said, "Lady, today is not your day. You need to go back to your bed. You're not going home today." And I said, "Well, what you don't understand is I've given everything away and I just threw my toothbrush away." So my parents are out there in an hour and a half and I'm leaving. But you have to be your own advocate. You have to fight for yourself because no one's fighting for you in there. No one. And you're looked at, you're a number, you're a nothing. You're spoken to with such disgrace and just as disgust. You could ask somebody, "What time is it?" Or, "Do you know if we have this for dinner tonight?" And they will cuss you out because they can. And so there is nothing in these prisons that's helping women to heal from their traumas, to deal with the what put them there. We're just punishing the crime, but we're not looking at the bigger picture. Nobody's saying, "Well, what got you here?" And I will say, education is number one. Most of these women that I encountered, and I did GED tutoring while I was in there. I got a job doing that, but most of these women are dropping out of school between 5th and 6th grade.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they can't read or write. Well, what are you going to do when you get out? No GED, no education. You're going to reoffend. You're going to go right back and do what you did before that got you there. Because that's what you know to do to make money for your family.
It's like you're being punished for survival.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? I don't know what led them to have to drop out at 5th or 6th grade, but it couldn't be good, And so, so they've had to survive under crazy circumstances, and you're being punished for doing things to survive. I mean, that's the inhumanity. It's inhumane. Like this whole process, there's not a single thing in here that is going to help anybody.
No.
Yeah.
And I told one of the head up people at the Ingram State Technical College, which is what pairs up with the prison to do skills training like welding, logistics, office GDs, that type of thing. And he got up and gave a speech to the ladies one day at a college fair type thing for them to come and see if they wanted to do one of the careers. And he said, "And all of you know about high school and how it works. You all were in at least till 16. I pulled him aside later and I said, "I thought the same thing, but I'm here to tell you 70% of these women never step foot in a high school."
Wow.
So to assume that we can't do that anymore. We have to face reality. The reality is these women are uneducated. These women did not do that, whether they got pregnant, they were in households that education was not important, Their parents did not make them go. My personal opinion, being an educator, prison reform starts in elementary school, keeping kids in school. No
Mhm.
are not letting them fall through the crack.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, like how many people total, how many women were in the prison, do you know?
I believe there were about 600, 500 to 600 in the actual prison. And then there are pockets of the prison, one in Montgomery and two in Birmingham, where hundreds of other women are. I was in one dorm that had 150 women, and then I was in another dorm with 125. So there's large dorms with large amounts of people.
So I would, and I don't want to make this sort of this graphic thing, but I really want to hear about what was it like that first day? Like, because, I mean, just walking in there for the first time going, okay, I'm going to be here for a year.
Well, and I came from a situation, I've never even known anybody to go to jail, let alone, I have no reference. I had not watched Orange is the New Black. So I really had no, other than watching Cops, I had no vantage point, nothing. I didn't. And so it was overwhelming. It was scary. You're taken off of I was woken up at 5:15 that morning and told to pack my stuff up. I was leaving at the county jail. I was shackled, hands and legs, put in a van with no windows, sitting sideways in a metal cage, taken there, doors opened, you're shoved out, taken off, and then you're shoved into a shower area and stripped naked.
Mm-hmm.
Everything you have on, you throw away. So somehow you're taught, in the county jail, they tell you, wear your best whites. You get to keep them. No, you keep nothing. Everything is thrown away.
Wow.
And then they size you up and start yelling out, oh, this is what size underwear and bra and clothes that she's to wear. And they throw them at you. And unfortunately, I put my pants on the wrong way. I didn't know there's a target on them. There's a writing on them where it's Alabama Department of Correction, and it goes on behind your thigh, and that's your target. If you were to escape, that's what they would shoot. And I put it on the front, but it's just a whole day of yelling and screaming and demoralizing and throwing you into really hard situations. You don't know anybody except for the people that you came from your jail with. It's very much a shock to the system. You're thrown into a room and you have to pick a bag, and the bags are labeled small, medium, large, XL. And then you pick the one that might be your size, and you pull out the certain things that are going to be labeled or tagged with your name and number. You have all these numbers you have to remember, and a lot of screaming, a lot of yelling. The food is disgusting. Not uncommon to have maggots in your food. It's not even meat that's consumable for humans. But you're all at the same time, you're glad to get something to eat. That's probably about the most normal thing of that first day. And you're just thrown in there. And those are the women that you bond with the most, because they're the ones that you experience the hardest day of your life with. But you also have to remember there's criminals and then there's non-criminals in this. And there are people there to take advantage of you and manipulate you and con you. And then there's others that want to hurt you. There's lots of mental people that are not on their meds, not on the correct medications, and that's messing people up. And then you're scared to death people. I mean, it is I can't say that, but it's a mess. It's a real mess. And, you don't sleep. You're scared. You're on a metal bed with a mattress that might be a 1/2 to 3/4 inch thick. And you're just it's overwhelming. I will never forget that day. It was April 11th, and April 11th will forever be in my mind.
God, it just makes me so sad to hear that human beings are doing this to other human beings.
Yeah.
Because like you said, even hardened criminals with criminal intent deserve to be treated as human beings, let alone people who are there because they've made a mistake. How many people have driven drunk?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm sure I have. You never think at the time that you are, but I'm sure I was legally drunk at some point driving, as if that couldn't be me.
Right.
It could be any of us. And it's just like,
well, take an illegal drug, done something, dumb when you were a kid, and it really doesn't take much. Were most of the, was there a good split of male and female guards, or was it primarily men that were the guards?
Yeah, it was a lot of men, a lot of women. I would say split.
Mm-hmm.
I would say split.
Was there a difference between how the female guards treated you versus the male guards, or is it really just the personality of the guard? Like how?
A lot of his personality.
Okay.
I think a lot of them, and I'm not being mean or ugly when I say this, it was the consensus of the inmates. They enjoyed having a place that they could go and kind of an ego boost, be over somebody else, tell them. And I hate to bring this up, but the racism, I've never seen racism as horrible as I have in prison.
Really?
On Black towards white.
Okay.
They were in the minority. The African American culture in the prison was probably about a third to women, but they ran the show. And I would say all of the prisoner or the COs, the police or whatever, were Black. I knew one white man. The rest were Black, men and women. Some very nice. But the majority, and especially the women, were there to lord over and to be ugly intentionally and to tell you what to do. And especially to the white woman. To the Black women, they would converse, pal around with, act like they were their buddies. Not me. And then the prisoners, the Black prisoners to the white was pretty horrendous. If I was in a shower that they felt like they needed to be in at that time, I was made to get out mid-shower, naked. You just get out. But to say all that, it's coming from every direction. There's no place of peace.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, and here you show up, this pretty blonde lady. Like, you didn't have a chance.
Were you in?
Go, what are you doing here? I know you're supposed to be here. What are you doing here?
Were you in a cell with someone, or was it a big dorm where you had many different people? Or because one of the things that I think would be the hardest if you had a roommate that you did not like. You had either they were annoying or mentally ill or something was going on, or just rubbed you the wrong way.
Right.
Like, how do you get away from them?
You don't, first of all. So in jail, it is a cell situation. You one or two other roommates locked behind a door. In prison, it's more dorms. First one, when I first got there were 57 of us.
Okay.
And then the next one, there was 80 of us. And the next two that I went to was the 150 and 125. And that is a lot of personalities.
Oh, yeah.
In space. And you kind of get in your group of who you live around. Your mate, the person that lives above you, the person that lives to the sides of you. And basically survival is staying to yourself, being quiet and not saying a word.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care whether you like what they do or not. You just don't say a word. I almost got beat up in one of them and got in an argument with the lady. And by this time, at a certain point, you start to stand up for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Not horribly, but vocally at some level. And because she did not want me to put my trash can, which I made from a paper bag that we got at the snack line, underneath my bed on her side because she didn't see it. So it can be you can have OCD people that are just every little thing, and you almost have to die to yourself. What you want doesn't matter anymore. You're just peace and survive and be as small as possible so that you aren't seen by anyone.
Yeah. And, you knew you would be getting out on a certain date and you had a short sentence. I mean, can you imagine just the torture of facing decades or the rest of your life or not knowing how long you're going to be in there? I mean, it's just torture. It's mental torture. And then we wonder why it's so violent. And we wonder why there's, all these issues. And we wonder why there's people wielding their power and
institutionalized. And I know a lot of women that came out and went back in, and they do that because, especially when they were in there 20, 25 years, that is all they know.
Yeah.
That becomes more comfortable to them than outside. On the outside, they have to pay bills and they're responsible for things. And in there, that's completely taken off the table. And so they reoffend because they can go back and they know they'll be safe. And it's better there. I know a lady that's getting out next year, and she will have been in 25 years.
Wow.
This prison system has done nothing to prepare her. She has no idea that there will not be a newspaper to buy at the local gas station or a cell phone or anything. And I don't know how she is going to survive. What kind of job is she going to get? And she's not mentally capable of getting a GED. So now what is she going to do?
Well, even what you talked about, that being on edge all the time, this heightened state. And I'm sure we've all been in those various situations in our lives. And, I talk a lot about burnout and stress. And Brooke and I were talking about this yesterday about, this, when we get stressed, your body needs to go through this stress response cycle, because when you get stressed, you get all these neurotransmitters and hormones come into your body. And the way in which we are able to process stress is by allowing that. But if there's never a time where there's no stress, like, it sounds like you're just always at this heightened place of complete shutdown, of, being hyper vigilant, but also probably exhausted at the same time, like this bizarre state to be in beyond burnout.
That is a perfect way of describing it. Because you're hyper vigilant, because they talk to you over a speaker system at the one dorm I was in, and then the other dorm, they just yell at you. And so you were to be asleep and you don't hear the 4:00 call for breakfast. You miss breakfast. That's it. And you have to get up and put your clothes on and be in compliance to go to breakfast. And so you never really go to that deep sleep. As you might miss something. You might miss somebody calling you, or somebody, you have an appointment or something of that nature. And so it's just constant.
Did you ever worry about being attacked at all by someone in your sleep? Like someone, because that would be my number one.
The worst dorm, the one with 150, that was F dorm. And it is a very violent dorm where drugs are going on 24/7. A lot of stealing. Stealing is your number one thing. And so you're constantly in a state of hiding all your stuff and holding on to all your stuff and keeping it locked up and making sure that nobody's messing with you. I was there with many fights. I mean, fights were every day. But when somebody gets a shank and they're running around a dorm of 150 people with beds everywhere, the likelihood they might fall on you is very high. So, type of things. And I hate to say it became normalized, but you just got to the point when I first got there, I know I was a deer in the headlight when it came to drug activity, the passing out, all of that, and then the fighting. But it became a point of, oh, well, and you just went on reading your book or whatever. And that is such a strange place to be in.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, so during this time that you're on probation, what are your restrictions? I mean, can you travel out of the state, or what does the next couple of years look like?
As crazy it is, I had no knowledge of what it was going to be like. So I had no idea, but it's been nothing. I show up on my Tuesday of every month and I pay my $40 in cash. And he asks me, has your address changed? No, sir. Has your phone number changed? No, sir. Have you had a run-in with the law? No, sir. Okay, I'll see you next month. I did have a job that I was interviewing for. I did not get it, but it involved maybe some travel over to Mississippi. And I called and asked. He said he had no problem with me traveling in the state of Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Leaving the state would require a discussion and a pass.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I mean, I'm not, but what if I was a really bad person? I mean, it just seems like, are they giving me all this leeway so that I will make a mistake?
Mm.
You know, not me personally, but I'm of those that come out, because you come out of this very highly strict, controlled environment, and now there's no restrictions on you.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't care that I have a job or don't have a job. Like, don't you want me to be a productive citizen in society? Don't you want me to be making money so I can pay my $40 without it being it took me almost 2 months to get my food stamps started.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know what people do.
Yeah.
But I think give you enough rope to hang yourself again.
That's what I was going to say. It's like they're not going to help you with anything.
Oh, no.
And they're kind of just sitting around waiting for you to screw up.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Is that $40 a week or a month?
A month.
A month. Okay.
And then I still have my court cost. And then some people have restitution on top of that. I did not have restitution. I just have court costs. And I will pay those when I get a job. I'm like, will have to wait until I get a job. But it's just, it does not make sense to the human mind.
Well, I have to say, I can just tell by talking with you, you will get a job.
Yeah.
And you will just the fact that you're only a few months out from this experience, and the way that you're able to just articulate everything, and the way you present yourself, and just how, how balanced you are, and just the way that you even just talk about, you're not angry, you don't feel sorry for yourself, you accepted responsibility and you're moving on. And so I know that it's just a matter of time before, things change.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, what are your plans for, you said you're interested in kind of getting the word out there about criminal justice reform and talking about this. Have you thought about how you might want to do that? Is there any kind of advocacy you're interested in doing, or?
There's so much, I love this platform. I've thought about maybe trying to do a podcast or something where I could speak, but I definitely want to focus on educational reform.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we do not, and that's where prison reform, in my opinion, starts. And as a teacher of an inner city school, fighting with these parents to get these kids in school on a daily basis, and knowing that they're missing because their one pair of shoes was in the boyfriend's car that wasn't there that next morning, clean clothes or no clothes that fit, and I could go on and on and on about that. But education for children and for just human beings is a right.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a privilege, it's a right. And that is the key that unlocks their future, good, bad, and different. Now, in that comes the ability to make free choices. We're free human beings to make our choices. But if a child does not have the basic education and skills to possibly do better with than where they're given or where they come from, they're doomed before they ever get started.
Mm-hmm.
And then we put them in juvenile and put them on.
Mm-hmm.
And I with someone yesterday that works with the juveniles. We're not doing anything in there either to teach basic reading and writing.
Wow.
Where is that? And why aren't we requiring basic education, if nothing else, in juvenile?
Mm.
Why aren't we requiring them to get their GEDs back then?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, isn't that the law? I mean, if you were a parent and you weren't sending your child to school, and wouldn't you get in trouble for that? For truancy or
they say that they send letters. You have to get, but I'm telling you, kids, especially since COVID, but the amount of kids that fall through the cracks. I'm homeschooled now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no follow up. There's no.
Oh, I can tell you that one because we homeschool. My son's been homeschooled for a while and we had a tutor that taught him. But I am constantly, there was a time where we asked the homeschooling place, like, okay, wait, he missed something. What do we do about that? They're like, no, it's okay. There's zero oversight, zero oversight. So all you really, and it's very easy. It's just a fee that you pay each year to be a homeschool. But I think that's like what we're seeing is exactly what you're talking about with this systemic issue. It's someone who wasn't, their parents they weren't able to educate themselves. They had to drop out in 5th or 6th grade to maybe get a job or deal drugs so that people in their family can eat. And so then, they grow up and they have children of their own and the cycle continues and it continues and it continues. And
I taught a lot of kids that their parents were doing the best that they could. And, their mom had to work all night. And when she got home at 4 or 5, she accidentally would fall asleep in the chair.
Yeah.
Next thing you knew, it was 9, 10 o'clock and the kids had missed the bus. And I would try so hard to work with parents like that. Bring them anyways. When time you can get here, as a school, we'll work with it. We'll do something, what can I do to help you? Can I call you? Because there are parents out there that are trying really hard. And I don't want to put them all in the same bucket. They are out there and they're really trying. But there's a lot that are not. And if we don't get a hold on that, and then we don't get into our juvenile system and make these people get GEDs and make these kids, and again, bottom line, what trauma caused this? How can I help you heal the trauma that caused the situation that started this whole ball rolling? And there's just no help for people out there. There's no voice.
Yeah. Well, this has been so enlightening. I mean, I thank you so much for contacting us. And I thank you so much for being willing to share your story and take the time. And, if there's anybody out there who has anything to offer Carolyn in terms of opportunities to get involved with, these issues that she's passionate about and to help her in any way, please contact us. At our email, or I don't know if you want to tell people how they can contact you. That's up to you.
But we're happy to be the in between.
Yeah, we're happy to if you psychlegalpoppodcast@gmail.com. If anyone has any resources or ideas, because like I said, I know that you're gonna be fine, but it takes time but you have a good attitude.
It doesn't leave you just because you walked out the door. Will always be a part of me. And you want to forget it, but I can't think about those people that are suffering still. That's not necessary.
Yeah, that must be hard. I'm sure you do every day. Like you think about the people that whole thing. Yeah. I mean, because like I said, this is not in that far of the distant past. It's
No.
very, very close. So,
well, if anyone out there has any information, because one of the questions that I wrote down was like, what can, if you're a listener out there listening, like, what can we do? Is there one small thing that we can do? So if there's anyone out there, because this feels like such a huge, big, giant issue, big thing. And I think that that's the piece. There are a lot of people out there that are passionate about this, believe the system should change, wants to do the work, but it's really hard to know, where do you begin? And I'm not saying, Carolyn, tell us where to begin. I'm just saying to anyone out there, please, any wisdom that you have of like, if you were us, like where do you begin? Because I've said it many times on the show, but the prison system should not be for profit. No one should be profiting off of this. And if there's some reason why you need to charge people $40 a month, then it needs to be like $3 or something. Like if there's, if there's a reason, because in the therapy world, there's always this belief that you don't do free therapy. If someone has to give you $1, that's fine. But there has to be some kind of exchange of, you have to give something up in some way, shape, or form for the service. And so anyway, I think that this is such an important issue, and especially it feels like, especially for we covered the documentary Daughters, which is about fathers and who are incarcerated and their daughters, but for women, being the primary caregivers to their children, it's unreal. I can't imagine what happens when a mom is gone for a year.
It all falls apart.
Everything falls apart, It really does. Or longer.
Well, thank you so much again.
Thanks for this opportunity. It's been amazing. And you guys are amazing. Thank you for doing to bring light to this and to other wonderful topics.
Well, thank you. And I hope we can have you back again sometime to talk about the same topic, but a different situation or different documentary. So we will see you again.
Okay.
And I just want to thank everyone for listening. If you enjoy our podcast, if you haven't already, if you could please subscribe, that would help us. It also helps if you can give us a 5-star rating and review. If you want even more of us, we have a Patreon where we do a weekly bonus episode where we talk more about our personal lives and also more topics, whatever topics we feel like talking about, basically. And you also get all of these episodes ad-free. That's at the $5 tier. At the $8 tier, you get all of that, plus a monthly true crime bonus episode and a monthly Ask Us Anything episode. And you can find us on all the social media platforms at Psych Legal Pop, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.